Whenever anyone talks of great authors of fictional horror, a name that will no doubt pop up every time is H.P. Lovecraft. Known for his many tales into the strange and horrific, such as Dagon, From Beyond, and Herbert West Reanimator, to name a few, his biggest success was the Tales of Cthulhu. Starting with the first story, The Call of Cthulhu in 1928, the stories of the unimaginable god had inspired so many forms of media that either were inspired by Lovecraft's work or were adaptations of his stories. As far as video games go, while Cthulhu inspired many games and was sort of in them under a different name or look, he wasn't the main focus of one, until 2005's Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. I'm not as well versed in Lovecraft lore as I'd like to be, though I do admit that this game caught my eye back when it first came out. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play it then. But I figured this is the month of ghosts, goblins, and unspeakable gods. Now's a better time than any to sit down, grab a controller, and finally see what all this is about. So, without further ado, this is Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. Our story takes place on September 6, 1915. Detective Jack Walters has been called into a police siege of an old mansion in Boston. He was specifically summoned there by Victor Holt, the leader of a cult called the Fellowship of the Yith, to talk to him. However, when Walters enters the mansion, he finds all the cultists dead and discovers a portal where strange beings emerge, leading to Walters blacking out. When the police find him, Walter seems to have gone insane and is put into Arkham Asylum. 6 years later, with a clean bill of health, Walters becomes a private detective and takes a missing persons case at the town of Innsmouth. However, when he arrives, Walters finds that not all is as it seems, and that he'll be dragged through a nightmare, not knowing if he'll lose his sanity for good. For a story that is based in the Lovecraft mythos, Call of Cthulhu handles it pretty well. Just the fact that you have to head to Innsmouth alone is wonderful fan service, as well as having the Shoggoth and Dagon thrown into the mix. Seeing Jack's descent into the madness and discovering later on what his bigger role is in all of this will have your hands clinging to the controller, wanting to continue. Well, that is, of course, depending on if you even like the style of gameplay Dark Corners of the Earth is. The best way to describe COC is first-person survival horror, where, as Jack, you explore through each area searching for clues and dealing with the otherworldly creatures. At first, your only option is to run like hell and hide, something that is a staple in most modern horror games today. You do pick up weapons ranging from a knife and crowbar to firearms such as a pistol, revolver, and shotgun, to name a few. Now, when the developer said that they wanted to give this game a true horror experience, they weren't kidding, as you have no on-screen HUD to keep up with health, status, or ammo. Instead, everything is shown with visual and audio cues, such as a rapid heartbeat and heavy breathing, or the screen losing color when you've taken a lot of damage. You can even receive damage that affects gameplay, like limping from a broken leg, or tougher aim due to a broken arm, or getting poisoned, though you can check on the inventory screen to see your status. To keep yourself healthy, you have to take care of your wounds, similar to Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, where you have to bandage and use different types of medicines to take care of your wounds, which is a nice addition to a horror title, especially when you're being chased by angry villager fishmen things. Same goes for guns. Since there's no HUD, you have to sound off how many shots you have in the chamber, as well as aim down the sight since there's no reticle. But be careful not to continuously aim, as Jack's arm will get tired and your accuracy will drop. Something borrowed from another popular horror game is Sanity. Just like in another Lovecraft-inspired game, Eternal Darkness, Sanity plays a big part here in COC. As you play through the game, you'll slowly start to lose sanity when viewing all the disturbing things around you. This leads to Jack starting to hear noises, see hallucinations, the controls becoming more sensitive, putting away your weapon, or even shooting off a round when you don't mean to, the shakes, dizziness, and eventually suicide. Not gonna lie, even though I absolutely loved the sanity effects in Eternal Darkness, I think the ones in COC are much better in terms of the character development. I mean, yeah, having the game make you think that it crashed can scare you for a moment, but having your character just shoot himself or choking himself and ending the game suddenly, that's pretty insane. Thankfully, you can restore sanity by killing enemies, taking a quick breather, or finding sanctuaries that protect you and allow you to save. I have to say that overall, the gameplay can be pretty solid. Granted, I've never been a fan of horror games where you're completely defenseless, but here it's not completely overdone. I will warn you that the first portion of the game, you'll be completely defenseless, and this might turn away some horror game fans. I urge you to stick with it until you receive your guns, because once you do, the experience changes greatly. Plus, the fact that you have to count your ammo and use visual cues to check your health and sanity is a great touch. Though, it is a bit jarring that whenever you use a first aid kit, a cutscene of you opening the box and putting on bandages always has to play, which would kind of throw me out of the moment, but that's a very minor gripe. Visually, COC is rather impressive, especially considering that it came out late in the Big Green's life. The levels you traverse through just ooze the dark, ominous, and slimy atmosphere that encompasses the Lovecraft universe, especially the town of Innsmouth, where you do spend most of the game. Meanwhile, the characters look great, from our main protagonist Jack and the normal humans he meets, to the Disciples of Dagon, aka the Fishmen, and even the creatures of beyond. Musically, the score here is a great mix of ambient whispers and growls with a slightly foreboding synth-like soundtrack, with the few songs that match the era of the time. It gave me the feeling of watching one of those direct-to-video horror movies that I'd constantly rent from the video store, which is a major plus in my book. Voice acting fares pretty well, with a good overall performance, but the Fishmen's accents did make me chuckle a little bit.
Robes. Alien robes. What you want?
Could you help out a stranger to this fine port?
Are you being funny?
No, not at all. I'm after directions to the First National. I hear they have a store in town.
Innsmouth don't take too kindly to them from out of town. Get lost, stranger.
What happened here, Constable?
Nothing.
Oh, swell. You can let me pass then?
No. You'll have to go another way.
Dark Corners of the Earth may not be the best digital representation of Lovecraft's greatest characters, but it comes pretty close, making it a really fun horror game. Even though the non-combat beginning might scare you away at first, it opens up to a pretty decent horror experiences, even if the sanity effects aren't as crazy as Eternal Darkness's. Sadly, due to coming out a month before the 360, the low sales of COC has led to this being one of the more pricier games for the Big Green. So if you see it for a reasonable price, grab it. Or just get the PC version on Steam if you don't want to deal with that. Even though critically, Call of Cthulhu was loved, as is the case here lately, due to the low sales of Dark Corners of the Earth, developer Headfirst Productions canceled their other two projects in their Cthulhu trilogy due to not being able to find a new publisher. A sequel for PS2 and Xbox called Destiny's End that was a third-person co-op horror game, and another first-person shooter for PC and Xbox called Beyond the Mountains of Madness, which would have been a sequel to Lovecraft's novella At the Mountains of Madness. What makes this even more bitter is that these two games were highly anticipated by gamers and critics alike. Now, even though the Cthulhu trilogy never happened, games based on the Unspeakable one are being made to this very day, with some examples like The Sinking City and Call of Cthulhu the official game, so you're never too far from a good insanity fix. Well, with that being said, this is the Dali Popka saying, as always, stay green, my friends, and have a wonderful, safe, fantastic, horror-filled Halloween. I'll catch you next time. Wait, someone's at the door. I wasn't expecting anybody. Who could that be? What do you want, Manorock? No, I told you This was for Cthulhu, not Eternal Darkness. I'm not reviewing your game this Halloween. No, I'm not going to review it next year either. I don't want to. Everyone else has done it to death. Go home. I have no Canton. See, you got the dog mad. You got the dog mad. Thanks a lot, Manorock. Thank you so much. No, go home. I'm done. Go home. Happy Halloween. Go home. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of me and the Big Green, then click that subscribe button and the bell to get notified when new content arrives. I want to say a special thank you to my patrons for helping not just the channel grow, but me as a creator. You have my forever thanks. If you're interested in the channel and would like to help it grow further, consider becoming a patron today. For the cost of a soda or an item on the dollar menu, you could help myself and the channel provide the best source of Big Green programming and more. Once again, all the thanks and love.